You are listening to Nihal live from Wembley Stadium, where Narendra Modi will be making a speech in around 2 hours' time. We are, of course, at the BBC Asia Network, are at the heart of any conversation that is being had by the Asian community here in the UK. But I want to know from you, most importantly, whether you think that Narendra Modi deserves the reception he's getting. Is it vital the UK does all it can to cement this relationship between the two countries? Do you think that actually Britain needs India more than India needs Britain? Do you welcome, of course, the £9 billion business deals that are being done? Should visa rules be relaxed to encourage more Indian students to come here? The numbers have almost halved in 5 years. And who needs more, as I said, in this relationship? Who's the major? Who's the minor? As well as the red carpet treatment, Modi's also been, of course, the target of protests. He is a divisive figure, a controversial one. Back in India, his BJP party has recently been absolutely annihilated at state elections in Bihar. And there's criticism over what some say is growing intolerance towards minority communities in the country. I'm now joined by some very esteemed guests who are going to help us have this conversation, starting off with Munaf Zina, former chairman of the Council of Indian Muslims in the UK. Also, Dr. Sachin Nandha, a PhD in political philosophy. My gosh, that's a man who immerses himself in the world of politics on a daily basis like a deep-sea diver. Next up is Basics of Sikhi's very own Jagraj Singh. Jagraj, always good to see you here.
Thanks, Nihal. Appreciate it.
And last but definitely not least, she's always on the end of a phone, but now she's here with me today, and I'm very pleased to say that we're joined by Tripti Patel, who's president of the Hindu Forum. I'm going to start with you, Sachin, as a political animal, as an analyst of all things political. Tell me, this is a seismic change in Indian politics when Narendra Modi became Prime Minister. But is this Wembley Stadium, giant screens, lights, tens of thousands of people, is it a bit vulgar for a politician to be doing something like this?
Oh, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
I think, to answer your question quite directly, I think what Narendra Modi is doing is I think he's changing the game. I think this is a man who certainly comes across, and certainly I would say is, a visionary. And I don't mean that in some sort of media-savvy glamour way. I am talking about his policies, his agenda for development, his radicalization in terms of working on the grassroots when it comes to, building hundreds of thousands of toilets for girls,
yes,
to opening bank accounts for millions of poor. This man is radical. He's not part of the establishment. And I think you talk to directly answer your question about this.
I mean, we're looking at this at the moment, and there are dancers on stage. There's amazing graphics.
It's incredible.
There's lights. This is a rock star.
It's a rock show. It's a rock show.
Not a politician.
Right. But here's the point, though, right? I think India, and I say this with the utmost respect, India, and God knows we all know, India needs a hero. India needs somebody who can get hold of the political establishment.
But we have Salman Khan's biceps for that. They're going to hold India alive.
If he could get development for India, then albeit. But I think this man, what he's doing is something very, very strategic, by the way. In a liberal democracy, you need the diasporic support of the nation. India knows that for its economic growth over the next 20 years, it needs the diaspora's brains, wealth, and networks. There is no doubt about that. In this stadium right now, I have met 5 heads of private equity houses who are looking at raising funds of excess of 500 million to go back into the equity markets in Mumbai. So this man, he's no fool. This is not some glamour show to entertain us. This is a strategic step move to attract and take India onto a global sphere. It gives a lot of vibrancy and confidence to the people sitting in this audience. They're going to walk away buzzing. They're going to feel pride in their identity. All these things will resonate in economic growth.
So this isn't about building bridges necessarily between India and the UK. This is about showing the diaspora, look, I'm your guy. I am here for you. Come back, invest. We just spoke to a family there who said, give me an excuse to move back to India.
I think it's both. I think, yes, there is certainly that for the diaspora. But remember, what I just said, the heads of private equity houses, they're all English guys, right?
Oh,
they're all English guys.
Okay.
They're all basically, until now, they've always seen India as high risk. Here comes a man who's deregulating, Here comes a man who's getting rid of the bureaucracy, and he is saying we're open for business.
Yes.
So that's an interesting step
Well,
change.
Indian share prices a day after he was elected shot up.
Well, even 18 months onwards, the economy is growing, inflation is low, GDP is high. So I think this is something significantly different. And I think we're trying to still find a lexicon to try and make sense of it.
Yes, absolutely. Jagraj Singh, what do you make of this event today?
Well, I think obviously India the Indian people love to celebrate with music anyway. So I mean, this is nothing.
Well, you're Punjabi.
unusual.
I mean, you know.
Yeah. So I mean, having music hasn't really may be surprising for a politician. Like if it was Tony Blair down there and there was music going on, you think that was a bit strange. But when it was India,
Tony Blair was in a band at university. Yeah?
Well, anyway, this is normal for Indians, and I don't really have a problem with Indians celebrating Indian culture. What I have a problem with is that if we just, although India's open for business and Modi's up for business, I understand that, but I don't think Modi's up for political change into the actual corruption of India and also into the kind of the suppression of the minorities. So if the people like in his party, the BJP, the RSS, the Hindu Sangh Parivar, these people are actively trying to suppress the minorities of India. And I don't think Modi's going to take any stance towards them because that's where his power base is. He comes from that background. So it's all very well for us to say, well, India's open for business, but India's not open to enlightened Western values of the, freedom of press, freedom of democracy. Even for Punjab, what's going on right now, the Sikhs are trying to protest against the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, which is being burnt and desecrated, our most sacred scripture for us, God on earth, literally. I'd rather be burnt than my Guru be burnt. And yet, if we're out there and the police say you shouldn't be burning our Guru, we get shot. So this is not, the suppression of the minorities is not going to be stopping under Modi. This is what worries us. If we don't bang on about this, like I'm here talking about this, I might be talking, they might put me on a list and say you can't come to India, but that's irrelevant.
You travel to India about 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah, I go there and I teach now.
Yes.
But the point I'm trying to make is that if we don't talk
You've
about
not been
this,
excluded from India.
if we don't talk about this here, right, we can't talk about it in India. If you don't talk about it here, then these people are going to think, oh, everything's fine. We don't have to do anything about this. So it's our moral responsibility while we're here to raise these issues, to let people like Modi know that we're not ignoring what they've done. We know what they've done. Fine. For Indians, he represents economic growth. And I'm not against economic growth for India. I want India to be prosperous and to economically grow because I think in that way, politically, the Western values will sort of seep in of democracy and of the need to clear up the police force and the corruption. And I agree with that. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to support Modi as an individual because I see him as being guilty of genocide in 2002. And currently I see his whole philosophy, the fascist right-wing Hindu philosophy, of being the reason that the Sikhs want to have a separate nation.
Tripti Patel, I mean, when you hear words like fascist right-wing Hindu philosophy, how does that make you feel as president of the Hindu Forum and hearing Jagraj's words about Narendra Modi, the BJP RSS?
Yeah, good afternoon, Nihal.
Good afternoon to you, Tripti.
Welcome, Prime Minister Modi. The basic of Hinduism and Sanatan eternal dharma is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We have one family, one world. And if you think about it, India as a nation, Bharat as a nation, has got all kind of people from all religions in India. Yeah, they live peacefully. Now, the problem arises when one particular section of the community wants to do something different than the other sets of community and do not have the respect. If we talk about various issues, yeah, and if you think about from very early age, my training, I've been born and brought up in India, as you know. My training was very clear. We all live together. Now, when you say that he's got a fascist thinking, now the point that was made about the Guru Granth Sahib pages being torn, that was and I do not want to go into any religious kind of war, but that was not done by Hindus. Now, 67 years of mainly Congress running of it, appeasing people all the time from minorities and pushing aside the majority might have some repercussions, but you cannot say that the administration does not change just straight away. The administration's been there for 67 years. Now, what he's done is in Delhi, he's started all the local government and central government. He put them on the very transparent basis into democratizing everything. What he's done is for all his staff, they have to be accountable. Yeah. So of course some people would be happy or some people won't be happy. But for goodness sake, he is the PM of the largest democracy in the world, the youngest number of people in the world.
With an absolute majority, which has not been seen in India in over a generation.
No. Look at the world. If you combine the people from the whole of the Europe, you still would not make up that kind of number. Now, when you talk about genocide, he's been clear by the Supreme Court. So people who do not understand or want to understand what happened in India, in Godhra, and we've touched base on this during the whole year, really.
Yes.
The train was absolutely bombarded. It was lit. It was people died in there. Then the people.
Which was proven to be an electrical fire and not actually an attack.
No, it is not proven.
That was an investigation said that.
Nihal, we are not going to go into that.
We're not going to go over that again.
I'm going to move.
I've got to move on because
all I want to say, Nihal, to you, very last point is that here is someone with a vision for everyone. The Muslims in Gujarat State. I come from Gujarat State. I meet them regularly here and in Gujarat State. They are all very happy about him. There are lots of Muslims sitting there cheering for him. Lots of Sikhs sitting there cheering for him. So
I think it was something like 7% of Muslims voted for Modi in the last elections.
Let's not digress.
From the statistics I've read, it wasn't as if the majority of Muslims.
It was still 7%.
Well, that's still 93% perhaps that did it. But let's speak to Geeta, who's in Cambridge, who's called in Tripti, and then afterwards, Manaf, I promise we'll come and speak to you next, former chairman of the Council of Indian Muslims. Geeta in Cambridge, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nihal, and thank you for taking my call. I unfortunately didn't get a ticket. I really wanted to be there, but I didn't get a ticket.
Why did you want to be there so desperately?
Well, it's not so desperately, but I just think that, it's high time that India actually had somebody with a lot of charisma and a lot of character. And the best thing about Mr. Modi is that he is not corrupt. He's trying to fight so much in India, trying to clear corruption, trying to clean the country.
There are arguments in India, Geeta, that he's absolutely in the pockets of big businessmen. These are accusations that have been put his way. Land grabs, for instance. In the election, he was accused of using the private jets of industrialists across India. He, of course, replied by that, saying that these were all paid for by BJP funds. But it's not true to say that everyone regards him as being above corruption. Those accusations have been levelled at him, that he is in the pocket of big business. Yes,
Nihal, there's always accusations.
Well, in that part of the world, always, yeah.
But, and they've always got something to say. But the job he's taken on is a huge job. And look at the respect he's got. I mean, you are there, surround yourself. You'll be seeing in 3 hours' time how many people. They can't all be wrong. It's for high time. And I think the reason why he's made such an impact on Indians in abroad is because he's just trying to clean up the country. He's trying to put India on the map, whether it's through business, through everything else, trying to say, well, we aren't just a poverty-stricken country anymore, and I think it's great what he's doing. And I think this train business with Godhra really needs to be just dead and buried now. It's been talked over and over and over again. And if he was any causer to it, he would have been in jail.
All right, Geeta, thank you. Geeta, thank you. We're going to have to leave it there. Munaf Sina, former chairman of the Council of Indian Muslims in the UK, you would think immediately, because, of course, Narendra Modi's troubled history with the Muslim community, that you would be automatically against him being here, but you're not. Why?
Well, I'm not against the Indian Prime Minister coming to the UK. He represents over 1 billion people who are very aspirational. They want to end poverty. They want to better their lives, and I think they have a right to seek that better life. And who am I and who is anybody else, for that matter, to take their aspirations away? And I think if the Prime Minister, who has been elected magnanimously, in a sense, in India, comes and visits so many countries in such a short time, shows that he is a dynamic individual, shows that, yes, he has to remodel himself. Yes, all this, to me, is a rebranding or remarketing exercise.
It's not rebranding. You did exactly the same thing at Madison Square Gardens in New York. It's part of an image building.
It's a continuous process.
Yes, yeah.
And obviously, I think people can't necessarily forget what's happened in Gujarat in 2002. People can't forget Gujarat. People can't forget the Babi Mosque Ayodhya incident. But people need to move on. Yeah, and I suppose
what does that look like?
The reason, well,
what does that look? What does moving on look like?
For me, it means engagement. Yeah, I was one of the first ones to have started the campaign to raise awareness about what happened in Gujarat in 2002. That was 3 days after what happened in Godhra.
You were one of the drivers of getting him banned from coming to the UK in the first place.
And I lobbied the Home Office so much to try and make sure that he didn't come. And I gave reasons why. What's changed is the fact that
he's now Prime Minister?
He's a Prime Minister. My strategy
felt he had blood on his hands in 2002, did you?
Well, I'm waiting for justice. Yeah, justice does need to take place.
But it's a direct question.
But that's a court for the courts to decide.
But then, okay, all right. But then, why then, if the courts hadn't decided in 2002, did you want him banned before the courts had given a decision as to whether he was involved or not? Why then?
I think it was. There's two factors. One is question of time, and I changed my position when he became the Prime Minister because he was now not Chief Minister of Gujarat. But secondly, because the fact that the courts. The court process is still ongoing. I mean, if you look at the
Supreme Court of India has found him that there is no evidence of complicity in the Gujarat.
The cases are still ongoing. The cases are still ongoing. We have 3 British citizens who were killed. Let's not forget that. Okay, all cases have not been decided. Okay?
No, but he himself, complicity in it has been found by the Supreme Court of India. There's no evidence. So in that respect, can you not just park that and go, okay, that we do need to find justice for people who lost their lives, but move on from him?
I agree that we need to move on. Where courts sit down and say differently, that's fine. But we need to move on in the meantime. Courts decide at the end who's guilty and who's not. We have to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is we have to fulfill the aspirations of 1 billion people. And that's inclusive development.
So would you be able to then say, hand on heart, as former chairman of the Council of Indian Muslims UK, that Narendra Modi no longer has any case to answer for what happened in Gujarat and we need to move on? What we do need to do is find out those who did perpetrate the crimes, but as far as Narendra Modi is concerned, we do not need to include him in that anymore.
I think
would you say that?
There is a moral responsibility. Whether there's a legal responsibility or criminal responsibility or not is neither here nor there. I think there is a moral responsibility, and I think the British citizens recently have asked for an apology as the first step. An apology for something that's happened under his watch when he was the Chief Minister is something which is reasonable.
Okay.
And that will allow a lot more people to move on.
Jagraj, you want to come back here?
3 points, one to respond to the lady, one to the caller, and one here. Firstly, the lady I'm speaking opposite, Tripti, she made a point about Sanatan Dharam. So we as Sikhs, we have a lot of respect for the Indian Dharam, the Hindu Dharam, as you might call it, Sanatan Dharam. We don't criticize it. Our Guru told us obviously some practices that it is. But one thing I want to point back to, when Krishan ji is sitting with Bhisham Pitaji and they're on the battlefield and they're asking to be told for a lecture on what is the Dharam of a king, of a ruler. At that point in the Mahabharata, Krishan Bhagwan has blessed Bhisham Pitaji not to feel the pain of the arrows, and he's giving a lecture on what is the duty of a ruler. And at that point, what you hear is about letting all the people prosper and looking after the rights of the lowest people in India. So when we talk about Modi, it's not enough for us to say, oh, well, he's a Hindu, so that means he's good. No, he's not a good Hindu. I would say, given by the Mahabharata, no way he can go by the lines of what...
You're arguing pro-Modi in the sense that he is not part of the political establishment. He's from the lower middle classes. He is not higher caste. Therefore,
I didn't say caste. He's not looking after the lowest person. I don't think so.
But
That includes all the people that are not even Hindus.
Everything that he's
the
saying,
Sikhs,
he is
the
saying
Muslims
that.
are also part of that,
Said,
of looking after the subject
in February
India.
of this year, he made a speech where he clearly, there is nothing equivocal about what he said. He said that India must be a place where all people are treated fairly and normally. No one should have any pressure placed upon them whatsoever.
But saying something is not the same as putting it into practice. Another point that's on, for example, now when Munir was talking about the idea of the genocides, we know for a fact that Amitabh Bachchan and people like this are directly involved in inciting the crowds in the November 1984 genocide upon the Sikhs in Delhi. And yet, under Narendra Modi's government, not once, even though they admitted it was genocide, which was great, not once have they allowed these prosecutions to go any forward than just token prosecution. So as Sikhs, we are not going to get justice, and we accept that. It's not going to happen. We're never going to get justice. Of course he denies it. Who would admit to genocide if he was guilty? So he is guilty for us, for the Sikhs, and we know that people over here will never admit that, because there is, in India, is a culture of glorifying
What do you want to see? What do you want to hear Narendra Modi say today in his speech, Jagraj? What would satisfy you?
I think Narendra Modi needs to own up to the fact that he wants to be a reformer, that let's reform the political system in terms of protecting the rights of everybody.
He's already begun to do that.
Right, so he needs to start saying that the Hindu fascist ideology that I previously espoused, I no longer espouse, and I believe in the freedom for all people in India, including for people like the Sikhs to choose, if they want to have more rights. For example, just yesterday, just this week, Nihal, the Sikhs have chosen a whole new leadership for the Sikh community in Punjab. There was Sarbat Khalsa in Tuesday. Now, what's happened is that the leaders of the Sarbat Khalsa have been arrested. That's ridiculous. How can you have a peaceful gathering of 500,000 Sikhs, choose new leadership, no arguments, no fighting, and yet suddenly the leaders of that of the Sikh community have now been arrested and put in prison? How can that be respecting the rights of the lowest? How can Ram or Krishan sit there and say this is what is Dharma in India? These people are actually against the idea of Dharma. They're actually fascists. So we need to recognize that we're not against India, we're not against Hinduism, we're against Modi and the fascist ideology of the Hindutva movement. Now the third thing I want to raise here is the caller said Narendra Modi is not corrupt. I can understand that Narendra Modi is not dedicated to financial enrichment for himself. But you know Aurangzeb, a big tyrant in India, he was also very poor. He earned his own living by stitching skull caps, and yet he basically persecuted thousands, and if not hundreds of thousands of Hindus and Sikhs. So we can't say just because he's not financially corrupt that he's a good guy then, you know?
Well, you lead by example, and clearly he is someone who leads by example.
Well, killing people is not a great example to set.
Well, the Supreme Court has shown that looking through the evidence with a special investigations team, that there is no evidence. I
have no confidence in the Supreme Court of India, given that since 31 years of November 1984, we've not got yet justice. So how can you say to have confidence in the Supreme Court of India? It's a corrupt institution.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, there's several points were being raised. Nihal, if you give me 2 minutes, I'd like to just address them very quickly.
Yes.
So a couple of points. I think.
Can I just, sorry to interrupt you, just say 81869 is the text number. Email nihal@bbc.co.uk, and you can call in. Just because we're live here from Wembley Stadium, it's business as usual in terms of us having a conversation with you listening. Sachin, sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. So this is basically a quote from a man called Ram Jethmalani. He was an international lawyer, and he was involved, sent by the international community to look at Narendra Modi's when they were investigating for the fourth time in the Supreme Court. And this was a statement he made at the end of that process. And I think it's just worthwhile. It's 2 lines. The lengthy process that involved thousands of witnesses and reams of evidence is over, and Modi has emerged unscathed. It is now time that the allegations against Modi and Gujarat should forcefully be informed to the general public, the secular intellectuals, and the opinion makers and the media. Now, that was a statement that came out in 2012, and he published that as a journalist in the Sunday Guardian. My point on this whole thing about Godhra and the whole incident is, look, and I want to make my second point on all of this. I think from a philosophical, political, societal perspective, let's be honest, India has a civic issue. There's no doubt about that. I think India has a civic issue. Now, let me give you just this other stat just to drive the point home. According to the Centre for Policy Research in Delhi, 24 out of 35 states in India, regardless of party, had religious riots of some sort between 2005 and 2009. India has a problem. There is no doubt about that. However,
under a Congress government.
Under a Congress government for 60 years, all the rest. So look, this is a civic issue. To boil the civic issue down onto one man is naive and I think a little immature. I think to have a more mature conversation, we have to look at it and say, what has Narendra Modi done since that sad incident in 2002? Well, since then, if you remember, there have been no major religious rioting or issues in Gujarat since then. But bearing in mind, so there's 2 points there. Second thing is we talk about shutting down and being some sort of a totalitarian regime under Modi. Let's be relative about this and let's just bring some balance. Is India more plural than Russia? Is India more plural than Pakistan? Is India more plural than Bangladesh? Is India more plural than France? I agree.
BJP leadership just this week have argued that there is a danger of the BJP becoming more autocratic, going against its very roots,
and
which is actually about discussion within the party.
And on that
these are the leaders of the BJP.
And on that point, we have to understand that this man has the largest mandate in Indian history since Nehru to drive change. 5 years, as you rightly said, is not a long time to drive that change. This man has got 1.1 billion people worth of expectations to achieve in 5 years. And let's be all honest, let's just be rational for a minute. We all accept, those of us been to India, India needs lots of change and lots of change quickly. Now, if this man is going to drive that change quickly, then he has the mandate to do so. Now, the media must remain free and plural, and I think he's very much a champion of that. Relatively, you've got to look
what about NGOs, for instance?
Okay,
Greenpeace, for instance, has just been essentially just thrown out of India. They've been shut down.
Very interesting. So take Greenpeace as a classic example. I don't have the stomach for Indian politics, so I look at it from a liberal, philosophical, institutional perspective. I can't handle the bitty points. But the Greenpeace point was really interesting because I am a liberal and I found that quite interesting. What happened? When you dug into that, what you realised was that Greenpeace were given a certain amount of time to show where their funding came from. And they could not tangibly show where some of their funding was coming from. So unless they could put up the evidence, that funding had to be stopped. So there was a bit
what they've done is used a rule which exists in the Indian law, which says that any organisation that is receiving foreign funding has to abide by certain rules and jump through certain hoops. And they use, the argument is, certainly from Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, is that they are using this rule in order to shut down dissent.
Now, okay, so again, we can then ping-pong that all day long. My point to you, though, is that I don't think as a man, one man is going to inevitably become a dictator or become a complete liberal. I think what he's doing is taking India on a trajectory of liberalization, politically as well as economically. As far as the minorities are concerned, really interesting. Again, let's be absolutely clear here. If you look at the economic growth of Gujarat during his time as chief minister, there is no one that can put on their rationally. Nobody can put their hand on their heart and say that minorities did not benefit from the economic development. That he released a significant amount of funding for madrasas to be upgraded, modernized, have IT systems. So this is a man that clearly understands that minorities...
But in the last election, though, Sachin, and you know this is your political animal, in the last election, in UP, for the first time since independence, the BJP did not field a single Muslim candidate. Not a single one.
Yes.
And many people looked upon that as, Manaf, what did you think about that? Were you aware of that fact, that in the last election, for the first time since independence, UP did not have a single Muslim BJP candidate?
And I think it was quite similar in Gujarat during the state elections too. So that is something, if you're talking about liberalisation, and I think we've got to talk about liberalisation not only of economy, but in terms of democratic values as well. And if there's that democratic deficit, people will not feel part of and won't have a sense of belonging. And I think that's
But
something
would
that
you not
needs to be
agree that he's been around for 18 months, and here's a man who's got a 5-year mandate? Let us at least give him the chance to get. Let's see
I
where he
think
is
the
in
Sikhs
5
just
years.
given this guy a chance, and we've just seen in the last 2 weeks what's happened in Punjab. I don't see what Modi has
But
done
is that a state
right now.
issue? Is that a state issue,
Yeah.
not a central
Exactly.
government issue?
And
And also
also
as well, I've heard, just to be clear, I've heard many different theories about this, including, of course, one theory that is out there, that this is an internal issue amongst Sikhs in the Punjab and political infighting within the Sikh community.
Tomorrow
At
I
the
could make a
highest
statement about you, Nihal, but it wouldn't be true.
It happens on
It's
Twitter all the
absolutely
time, my
nonsense.
friend.
Right, so
But
the
no,
fact
but-
is
but
that this is a...
You can't accept that your theory is
Two
true.
people were shot dead by the police,
Okay.
Nihal. That is not an internal
No,
issue.
absolutely-
The police shot dead 2 people for protesting
absolutely
peacefully
not. But what
to
we're
the
looking
police.
at,
So let's not belittle.
But what we're looking at
killing
is the
by
roots
police.
of why those
It's not an
protests
internal
happened
matter
in the
when the
first
police
place.
kill people.
All right, okay.
It's not a state matter. The government should be coming down hard to say, sort this out right now. And I haven't heard anything from Modi to say, you know what, the police in
And
India
what
needs
is
to be
the
sorted
Chief
out.
Minister of Punjab been doing?
The Chief
Patel
Minister of
and his
Punjab
son?
is part of the problem. That's what we've just declared him as a Panth, a complete waste of space, and we've taken away all of his awards. So no one asked me what the police did.
Right. Okay, well that might explain why some of the arrests.
That's the political corruption in India. He's elected because he paid people to vote for him.
Okay,
this is part of the problem in India.
Okay, let's come out of that for a second and let's speak to some of the people that are calling. Tripti, I just want to go to some callers first, so let's hear their opinions first. Let's first speak to Vic, who's called in from London. Tripti, after that, I promise I'll go to you. Vic in London, good afternoon.
Afternoon, Nihal. How you doing?
I'm good, my friend. Thanks for holding on. What would you like to say?
Look, I just want to raise a really simple point, Nihal. You regularly on discussions with Modi talk about the fact that he was the Supreme Court effectively put him on trial and said nothing. He did nothing wrong for the
that's
riot.
a fact.
As you call him, Gujarat. Yeah, okay, it's a fact, but India is a country that is corrupt to the core. I don't know how many times you've been there. I've been there
many times, yeah.
Yeah, I've been there multiple times. So then you may have come across bribery by police on the streets. I've been there many times where it's common practice to exchange money for traffic fines, for things like police just pulling you over, just looking for things like alcohol, looking for a bribe. The country is corrupt to the core, from the bottom up, right to the top. So I don't
you'd only be satisfied if he'd been found guilty. Is that's actually so?
No,
if they'd found, wait a minute, if they'd found him guilty, would you then think it being a corrupt law system?
If the institution is corrupt to the core, how can you put so much faith into what the court are saying? I just don't understand it. Come on.
Well, there are thousands of people who are convicted.
It's not a sensible viewpoint, Nihal. It's really not. The country is corrupt from the bottom up. You can see it with your very own eyes.
But wait a minute. So your argument is, though... So if he had been found guilty, then would you have called for him to have been released because you do not trust the legal system in India?
Look, all I'm saying is the point that you...
Well, this is the point. I mean, this is why your silence says a million words. Clearly, if you feel that it is... If you basically didn't get the result you wanted, therefore, you will then brand the entire... Are you saying there's not a single honest judge sitting in the Supreme Court of India? Are you saying that they're all fundamentally corrupt, every single one of them?
I'm saying the country is certainly skewed towards corruption. It's a country that is... has the best interest of the elite. It's all about who you know and not you know. Persecuting minorities is the culture within the country. That is the norm. And you talk about the government in Punjab. It's not a government that has Sikh values or Sikh, an ethos of living in the spirit of Sikhi. They are people that have been put in place and disguise themselves with beards and turbans. And then people like you can sit on the radio and say, actually, well, there's Sikhs involved, there's Sikhs making decisions. It is absolute garbage.
With all due respect, it's not my job to judge who is a Sikh and who is not a Sikh. That is not my job. That is not your job.
No, but Nihal, you do
I'll
it
take it on.
regularly. You do that regularly.
Nowhere near a Sikh. I'll take Badal is nowhere near a Sikh. You know, the other day, Badal and his son, they're completely corrupt. They're not Sikhs.
Right, okay, all right.
We're going to check the... In the Sarbat Khalsa can decide to do that, Nihal. It just did it recently, took away the awards from him. And the Sarbat Khalsa can choose to declassify Bado as not a Sikh anymore.
We're not going to make this a Sikh hour here on the BBC Asian Network. And, you've had your chance to speak as well. Ifti is on the line. Zach, 1 second. Ifti is on the line. Before I go to Ifti, Tripti, you want to come in?
Yeah, I just want to make a point that the whole concept of Sarva Dharma Saman and the unified civil code, okay, in India, everybody wants that. I know it's going to take a time, but when you have a unified civil code, everybody is equal.
Tripti, should the Indian constitution change to recognise the fact that Sikhs and Buddhists and Jains are a separate religion and not a branch of Hinduism?
It is recognised as separately.
No, it's not. Article 25 of the Indian Constitution does not recognise them separate. It's not. So, Tripti, are you going to go for it? Change the Constitution?
I'm not just going to say that about all religion to be equal.
What?
Right?
That doesn't matter.
Now,
back up
just wait 1 second. We are not arguing, okay? So I don't want to even go into that.
We're having debates.
We are having debate.
Very civilised debates.
Very civilised debate. So, see, when you say Sarva Dharma Saman, that is the concept for everyone.
Concept is fine. Constitution is another thing, because that's written down and that is the law of the land.
I'll tell you why.
Because India is
let me finish.
No, but India is a secular country. Therefore, it's the constitution.
Yeah, but it's a secular country where, if you look at it, one religion is different. Why? Because the Sikhs, every Hindu family in the country in the past, they used to give a son to become a Sikh. So Hindus and Punjabis, Hindu Punjabis and Sikhs intermingled until recently when you can see that. So all this very staunch thing about I am this and I am that, it should come out of it.
That doesn't make any sense. In 1950, the Sikhs...
No, Jagraj, please. I want to go to Ifti, who's on the line. Ifti's called in. Ifti, good afternoon to you. I'm used to saying good morning, but good afternoon to you. It's an unusual time for us.
Belated Happy Diwali to everyone.
And Happy Diwali to you and yours, yes. What would you like to say, Ifti?
Nihal, I must say that this forceful amalgamation under the guise of secularism of religions, I mean, Muslims are obviously identified as a separate religion under the Constitution of India, but Sikhs are not identified as a separate religion. And if we want to seek through secularism, we have to acknowledge diversity of ethnicity and diversity of religion as well. So that's the first point I was going to make. The main point with regards to been listening for the last 20 minutes to the discussion for the pros and cons of for and against Mr. Narendra Modi.
Yes.
My difficulty with Mr. Modi is that whenever he's been acquitted by the Supreme Court of India, and I do agree that in the subcontinent, not just India, the institutions and the structures of the judiciary are often corrupt, and mainly corrupt, to be honest. And it isn't just India, to be fair. No. It's the other countries in the region as well. So people have very little faith in the judicial system, and that is reflected in the fact that many crimes are committed in India, and from the lower level of the judicial system to the highest level, people are not punished or not judged accordingly. But having said all of that, I think when somebody is the chief minister of a state, and even though he may or may not have been directly responsible for the riots and the outrages that were committed, the person under whose watch this is done the buck has to stop with them. In any other country, if under somebody's watch outrages are committed, they would resign from their position.
He'd only been in position a few months when the Gujarat riots happened.
But it
he'd been in post only a few months when
it seems that his acquittal by the Supreme Court, which was
under a Congress government.
Yeah, under a Congress government. Yeah, but
who certainly politically had nothing to gain from finding him.
No, bear with me, please. That doesn't really amount to anything other than the fact that if in the as one of the chaps who was speaking before said since then nothing has happened. Well, obviously everybody's watching the situation in Gujarat like a hawk. It isn't going to happen again, because then
isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, oh, it's a good thing. But what is happening outside of Gujarat now, I mean, you've got to look at the fact that a lot of intellectuals, secular intellectuals, who, including intellectuals from the Hindu community, have voiced their concerns at the inability of the BJP government, led by Mr. Modi, to actually take any action or have a voice against some of the outrages that continue to be committed in other areas of India. And this silence shows a level of turning a blind eye to what's happening. And I think what knocks people's confidence in Mr. Modi is the fact that he isn't actually making it, other than saying India is a secular country and we believe, the rhetoric is there, but in practice there's a lack of action that actually indicates that the rhetoric is going to be followed up with actual
we're 18 months in. Do you think it's a bit premature to say those kind of things? Should we not wait until 2019 before we can have
about incidents that are happening, that are taking place in India even now as we speak, where Narendra Modi is silent. I
think that's a very good point to come in, actually. Very quickly, Jagraj, you've got about 10 seconds, so I'm only going to get one word each from each of you. One word to describe Narendra Modi.
Questionable.
One word.
Hopeful.
Tripti, one word.
Welcome.
Inspiring.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that.
Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru.